Hey, good morning. This is Ellen on the tropical island of St. Bart's. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Hey, this is Stan again in Gainesville, and today we're discussing being an honorable professional, slow programmers, new AI lighting control, our ultimate fantasies, lighting fantasies, and what type of video monitors give true color, all on Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shores neighborhood of Long Beach, California. If you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers.
And sister.
That's right, Ellen. Welcome, everyone, to episode 409. So today Steve couldn't make it. He had some sort of administrative duties that he had to do.
He has to be the disciplinarian.
Yeah, he's a bad disciplinary. He's rough on you, man. He's rough.
Hombre,
he's a bad
Professor
hombre.
Steve.
Don't get on his wrong side. I'll tell you that right now.
That's Professor Steve.
So we have a couple of things to talk about before we get started with your questions. First of all, as some of you know, I was at NAMM last weekend, and that was really amazing. And Ellen, you may be very interested in this because I got some data on how many people attended. NAMM, just so everybody knows, it's the National Association of Music Merchants, and it occurs every year here in Anaheim, California, at a gigantic, huge convention hall. It's just mammoth. Football fields long, 4 stories. There's a building next to it, 2 stories. It is just insane. Sometimes they go into the hotels. It is wacky. And at their height, and I got this from someone who's been going to NAMM for a long time, they usually get about 120,000 registrants there, right? And it usually takes over 3 or 4 days. And when COVID hit, of course, it went way down. I mean, a lot of companies did not exhibit there. A lot of people wouldn't go there for obvious reasons and things like that. So ever since COVID, they've started to do it again, and it's been building up. And I heard the latest data that I heard is they had around 60,000 people there. Now, that's a lot of people, let me tell you. It still seemed really crowded to me. I was there on Thursday and Friday. Forget about Saturday, because that's when all the stars come. And of course, everybody's there then because they want to see Stevie Wonder close and things like that. It's crazy. And Stevie goes around and he plays different instruments, which is really, really cool. So NAMM was really, really interesting. Had a lot of new products, which is great. So that's good news as far as musical instruments and things like that. And then we also want to talk a little bit about the Grammys, which are coming up this Sunday. So that's actually tomorrow because the show will broadcast on Saturday. I'm actually working for Ellen. I'm doing a little Grammy review on the lighting and the, I guess, sound also. I guess I could talk a little bit about sound. So I'm going to do a little backstage thing. We're going to go out there tomorrow and maybe on Friday as well. So that's pretty exciting. And next week, we're going to actually do a Let's Talk About It about the Grammys. And we're going to talk about the lighting for the Grammys. So that's next week. All right. So let's get to our first question. And I believe Stan has it.
Yeah, but I don't have the answers. But so Lynn in Buffalo asks, I want to hear your lighting fantasy. If you could have your dream light plot, what would be on it? Now, I don't know if I want to answer that. I want to hear, the whole point of having a fantasy is somebody sharing theirs. I'd like to hear David's and Ellen's.
Are you asking me what my fantasy is?
I have some, yes, I have some thoughts, but, I want to hear from you guys. What's on that light plot?
Well, you mean in terms of equipment?
Well, it could be anything.
Yeah, it could be a design, like, your lighting fantasy, designing for Taylor Swift. Is that your lighting fantasy?
Lynn is asking, what would be on that plot?
Oh, what would be on that plot? Have your dream plot.
What would be on that plot? Like Ellen likes to get the inventory of the Grammys, for example, and people like to see what people are choosing. So if you were just, fantasizing, what stuff would be on, and what stuff would be on it? How would you lay it out? How would you organize it? What things are there? And it's a fantasy light plot.
7,000 park cans with tungsten lights.
No.
Okay.
And a lot of dimmers and power.
That's a lot of power.
That's a lot of power.
Fantasy, you asked for it. You got it.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
fantasy.
okay.
Right.
You know, so Ellen is old school. You know, she loves that Parcan. Been talking about Parcans for a long time. I just had my lighting fantasy, believe it or not. The plot that they gave me at the San Francisco Opera was pretty awesome. I mean, the plot that Live Design published was only the part of the plot that I used and the special lights that I ordered. So it looks really small, but there are like 600 lights on that damn plot.
Is that a rep plot that all the designers use?
Right, but I didn't give you the rep plot. I just gave you the lights that I used.
Right.
And some of them were in the rep plot and some of them were added just for my show. So actually, if you look at that light
How many
plot,
of the 600 did you not use?
oh,
Was there a
about,
bunch- there's
I
just
don't know,
something you didn't
450 or 500. I didn't use that many lights in that show. I probably only used about 60
So you
lights.
didn't make use of the whole.
I didn't need
You
to.
didn't use the full
No,
Monty.
why? I mean, I know some designers who do that, Oh, I got to use that light. I remember,
Yeah.
oh man, I tell you, I remember a show I did a long time ago when I first started out. It was for the Mobile Opera Company. Okay, now believe it or not, there's an opera company in Mobile, Alabama. And I did a light plot, and I don't know, I'd probably have 200, 300 lights on it. This is back in the tungsten days. And there were some lights that I didn't use. They didn't work for me, and it changed, the idea changed, so I didn't use the lights. And during final dress, the master electrician comes up to me and said, young whippersnapper, you know that you didn't use channels 27 through 35 the whole show. And I said, yeah, I know that. He goes, well, why? I said, because I didn't need them.
So your fantasy is to have a small, lean, and mean.
Well,
light
no.
plot.
My fantasy is to have a plot like they gave me, a rep plot, where 70% of the angles I needed were already there with good moving lights in them. That's the type of thing that I added about another 20 lights in different places that they didn't have. That's all. And then, my real fantasy, though, is to have a device that still hasn't been invented yet, and that's Drone Focus Deluxe. I'm going to just keep talking about this damn thing. I think, when it is legal and quiet enough to have a light that actually moves around the theater so you get any angle you want, and it's not like distracting, to the audience, that would be my fantasy.
Do you have a patent on this yet?
No, I'm sure people are trying to make it happen.
You have to design it to get a patent.
Yeah, exactly.
Design it.
You need a prototype.
I'm sure someone's done it. They probably just gaffer tape a flashlight onto a drone, but you can't fly it above the audience.
That's not bright enough for stage lighting.
It's not, and it's also too loud.
Right. Most places don't allow drones inside. But it could be good concert lighting.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't go over people. And it's too loud.
Well, several years ago, David and I had a conversation with one of the industry's visionaries and described the studio environment. And he's smiling because he's remembering where there's a structure that's 360 degrees and 180 degrees, and there's a point everywhere, and the light can come from literally any point of view, which is sort of what David's getting at. David also said something that's in my lighting plot fantasy. So she asks what's in it. I'm going to flip that on its head a little bit and say what's not in it. So in some ways, no noise, zero, a completely silent light plot. And so right now I'm actually engaging in something like this. I'm not designing a particular production, but I'm designing a repertory kind of environment for a project that does not have a budget limitation. How weird is that? So I'm sort of stuck. I'm used to working in a budget and trying to be thoughtful and frugal and smart about what we do. And here I'm like, I can have anything I want in this space. It's about 700 seats. It's got, probably I can have a position anywhere I want. We're just in the beginning phases of conceptualization, and I'm researching fixtures. And I'm going, oh, maybe they want that. Maybe that would be nice to have. So I'm sort of like struggling a little bit with making a fantasy. But one of the things that is oftentimes more expensive, and I was just looking into the high end has a fixture now they call the I think it's the Halcyon Silent, right? And I actually downloaded the DB sheet today. They have a white paper on its, and they're saying basically when it's dimming or changing color or whatever, let me see if I can call that up because I had it up earlier. Yeah, so this is done by a company called Mula BBM. And in the last paragraph, it says, sound pressure level measurements on a surface at 1 meter distance of the device under test. The Halcyon Silent were carried out. Level values were found to be in the range of the background noise of 16 dB up to 40 during the calibration sequence. Sound pressure levels above 20 dB occur during tilting, panning, and zooming, and sound pressure levels below 20 decibels were found during changes of brightness and are supposed to be inaudible under normal conditions in a theater or concert hall. So basically under 20 dB, when we're just changing brightness, that's at 1 meter. That's 3 feet away. Nobody's sitting, well, it's possible you could be sitting 3 feet away from a fixture, I suppose. But I think that's, in my fantasy life lot, I want best automation money can buy, right? Most reliable company, all the usual boxes we check, but totally and 100% silent.
You know, I had those fixtures in my plot in San Francisco, and they were sitting on the deck, down left and down right. So they were silent. So Diane from Jamaica asks, how do I deal with a slow programmer? I feel that we could save so much time if I just took over and programmed the show myself.
Yes.
Diane, do you want to keep working in this business? I don't know a good way
Maybe
out
she
of
wants
that.
to be a programmer, really.
Yeah, if you want to be a programmer, that's fine, and be a programmer. Or you can be a designer programmer, but you're not going to remove a programmer in the middle of a production. You're going to want to make it work. Now, this is coming from a guy who, like 25 years ago, fired 3 programmers in 1 week. All right. One of them went out of the theater screaming.
Because
The union gave me crappy programmers. And this does not happen anymore. And I unfortunately, back then, I had to make a point, and they just couldn't hack it. Now, that was in a much higher level of, I don't know what, Diane, where you're working here, but in all cases, you need to try to make this work. And also, I'm not sold on the idea of being a designer programmer, because you don't want to spend so much time trying to figure something out and program it when your mind has to be clear and looking at what's happening on stage and being able to design and, think ahead, and not be so integrated into the technical part of programming. Okay. And we're going to talk about that. We actually have a new sponsor today that actually has figured all this out. But that being said, I think you just do your best and you talk to them alone, right, privately, and say, how can we make this work? How can the things be moving a little quicker? And sometimes you're running out of time and you just have to get it done. Okay. And maybe that means you may want to slim down your cues, because as you're moving along in the production, and a lot of times you're working with a new program, you don't really know how fast they are. So if they're slower than normal, but still competent, then you may have to, just pare down the design just a bit and just get the most important cues in there. And then if you have time, you go back and you add the cues that you missed.
well, is the speed necessary because you are racing against a deadline?
Absolutely. It's definitely, and also because maybe the director may be losing patience or whatever, and then you need to talk to the director. Saying, look, this person's a nice person; they're doing the best they can, and we're going to make it work. Don't worry about it. Or just when we hit a slow point, go take a break, go get a cup of coffee or whatever. But sometimes, again, it depends on where, if you're in a super high level, like you're working for a large opera company or theater company or Broadway, this is not going to happen because they've already weeded those people out. The programmers are going to give you are really good.
Right.
So, I'm fortunate that I've I don't have to deal with this anymore, but I did at one time and like 25 years ago.
I was also going to say 25 years ago, you must have been dealing with incandescent lights and just channel levels. You certainly weren't dealing with automation back then.
Sure.
I'm thinking.
Oh, I was dealing with automation in 1990.
Really? 25 years?
It's 2025. Automation came in like
so you were dealing with
yeah. Yeah, I was dealing with Verilights and with Martins and stuff 25 years ago. Sure.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm going to, again, flip this out. It's like maybe, it's not the programmer, I think, as David kind of hinted at. Maybe it's you. I mean, you do have to sort of adjust yourself to the circumstances you're in. I don't know if she's in a school. We've certainly taken programmers off a show in the school where they just were not they just were not prepared for the moment. If they're in a professional environment, I think you got to go, okay, I got this much time. This is the quality of this programmer, and this is as fast as I'm going to get out of them, and I can't fire them and replace them. Then you adjust your expectations, as David is saying. It's like I've had to do that. I've had to, say to myself, well, I was doing a show once with no automation. Actually, it was a 2-scene preset in a summer stock scenario where the power came from a generator, and the generator also powered the restaurant next door. And so if we pulled too much power, the generator would stall because the restaurant and the theater were running off the same power source on an island, right? And so if I wanted to do a nice bright cue, I literally had to hang an amp probe on one of the hot legs of the feeder and watch it, because if I made the cue too bright, the generator would stall. So my cues were somehow, and my complex, also the person who ran the board, a 2-scene preset, they can only preset so quick. And so if I wanted cues that came too fast for them to actually handle on a 2-scene preset, it was incumbent upon me to adjust the expectations. And I think that's what David is saying, is you just may have to adjust your expectations because the horse you're riding doesn't run any faster.
Now, if you're working with a production company and they're supplying the programmer, because this actually happened 2 years ago. I remember when we did fire the programmer recently. It was 2 years ago. I was doing a show at USC, and this programmer that just wasn't working out. So I went to the head of the production company and we talked about it because he was on site. And as it turns out, my assistant's partner is a really great programmer, and she just said, hey, why don't we just have my partner come in? I said, great. And we almost wasted a whole day, which is a long time. And then her partner came in and sort of saved the show. So that's another thing you could do. But don't try doing it yourself, because, and I'll tell you, the director's not going to like it. They want you sitting next to them and not, with your head in the screens and buttons and all that other crap.
Right. Well, guess what? You are listening to Light Talk with the Lumen Brothers and Sister. And this week, Light Talk is sponsored by
Lumen Master Lighting Control with AI. Okay, so you have heard us bitch and moan about why lighting control manufacturers are not developing their lighting desks with voice-controlled artificial intelligence incorporated in them. Frankly, we are sick and tired of these companies ignoring today's cutting-edge technology that is transforming our world. Siri takes voice commands. Alexa takes voice commands. Even our dogs take voice commands. Why the hell can't a lighting controller take voice commands? Well, we are tired of complaining and instead are taking action. Introducing Lumen Master Lighting Control with AI. Yes, Lumen Master takes direct lighting voice commands from the programmer, or lighting designer, or director, or production director, and follows them instantly. No more waiting for a programmer to create an effect. With Lumen Master, this only takes seconds. Want to focus fixture 23 to 6 feet down left of down center? Just say, focus fixture 23 to 6 feet down left and down center. Or, focus fixture 23 to the down right chair. Or, color fixture 23 with R68 and put a construction breakup in it. Or strobe fixtures 4 through 10 down center in random cool colors. Make it slower? Now record this as Q10 in 3 seconds. Yes, speak to the Lumen Master just like you would talk to a programmer. And who needs follow spots? Just ask Lumen Master to follow any actor at any time. Just say, use fixture 2 to follow that idiot who just crossed down left. The advanced AI optics and the optional moving light camera caddy will locate that moron and follow him no matter where he wanders off to. But that's just the beginning. Lumen Master's AI capabilities truly come to life when you hit a mind freeze and just can't come up with an idea. Just do what many do with ChatGPT. Ask Lumen Master for an idea. Like, Lumen Master, using fixtures 41, 42, 67, 68, 91, 92, and 93, create a sexy, sultry, hot look for this song. Create slow chases and a burning hot floor that syncs with the following music, which you play into a microphone or through a USB input. The possibilities are endless. But we are not stopping with simple commands. The advanced AI chip in Lumen Master will constantly listen not only to you, but to the entire production team at the table and through the headsets. Using one of its 4 user-selected voices, don't be surprised when your command for a chase is answered with,
Are you sure you want to do that? After the last chase you created, the director deeply groaned and passed wind.
or when the stage manager calls 15 minutes to break, you may hear,
You may wish to send the follow spot operators down now, as they were drinking in the crew room 2 hours ago and they probably need a bathroom break soon.
or when you start writing that cue that you want to use for a maximum color contrast,
Like for reals, not that cyan over Congo blue cue again. Like for sure, just looks so 80s.
or when you are rushing to finish creating a cue sequence in an act, you may hear,
This is starting to look a lot like cues 3 through 6. Should I pull something out of the Don Holder library?
yes, Lumen Master may indeed save your career. So stop waiting for those lazy product developers from those other lighting control manufacturers to take this bold step. Purchase Lumen Master Lighting Control with AI from the Light Talk gift shop, coming soon. Yes, it's expensive, but think of the money you will save by not having to hire programmers, follow spot operators, or even lighting designers.
You mean this doesn't exist yet?
Do you believe
I
that?
thought this was like, I thought it
It
was
does.
like out like last year.
We're going to make money.
I
If
mean-
ETC doesn't do
I
it,
mean, we've been talking about this forever. It's like, hurry up, you dudes. Anyway, and now back to Light Talk.
well, the sound of those monkeys, iguanas, and ducks wreaking havoc in Stan and Pam's closet, trying on their clothes, means that once again it's time for Let's Talk About. And today's Let's Talk About is all about being an honorable professional.
Hey, that image of those creatures trying on clothes in our closet.
Yep.
I'm visualizing that. I'm trying to see what that would look like. Yeah, that's a good image.
I think the iguana looks great in your top hat.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, we
the
could probably
bow
get
tie.
rid of some of
He's
those
wearing a bow
clothes.
tie.
I think
Yeah.
we should just let them take those clothes. We have too many clothes in there to start with. Anyway,
All right.
what does that mean, being an honorable professional, David? You have to define
It
that.
is
Are you saying
doing
that?
the right thing. You know, the Spike Lee.
I thought it was producers who were unhonorable.
Well, we're not going to get into that. We're talking about what we can control, and that is ourselves. We can't control other people. How to stay honorable in this business that
Say
sometimes
what you mean what
dishonorable.
you say, do what you say you're going to do. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Supporting each other. Don't screw other people over.
Show
Right.
up on
Don't-
time. Show up on
Show
time.
up on
Show up on time.
Don't
you
let-
know,
Don't make people wait. Yeah.
be kind.
You know, it's just that we have heard so many horror stories of people usually going to New York or some other big city and getting screwed over by other people. And sometimes people get jaded and they think, you know, well, the only way I'm going to be able to fight is if I'm just as jerky as these other people. Believe me, you meet a lot of directors in your career and a lot of producers and a lot of stagehands and electricians and people like that. And they're just like any other human being. Some people are great and some people are really not so great, you know. And you never want to go down that dark side. It's not worth it. And I just think that you just want to get the show done. You just want to make it happen, and you don't want to try to, there was that old saying. What was it? I'm trying to remember who said it. It was avoid being the victim. Remember that? There was some very famous designer who used to say that, avoid being the victim, which, I don't think that is really so great. I think we should help the victim, whoever that may be. That's like trying to stay ahead, and not be there when the bad things happen.
Avoid being the victim could mean to be strategic in your choices and create, if you see yourself getting into a situation where you're going to be a victim,
right,
get out.
Right.
Well, don't go fall into the trap of a situation. I mean, I've turned down work because I'm like, this is not. You could smell it early on, and you go, this isn't going to work well. And sometimes, I've taken maybe 3 or 4 of my career where I should have said no because I felt it at the beginning. Sometimes when you're in academia, you can't. You're sort of obligated to be in a situation, and that's more difficult. But I think you can see when you're going to get into a situation where you're going to be victimized, and run from that. Build strategies to recognize that when it's coming your way, and try and avoid it if you can.
On the other side, I think that, being an honorable professional is like if someone says to you, okay, where can I get this gear? And I know a lot of the architectural lighting designers spec the gear and get paid for it. And
do.
Be honest with your client. Don't try to rip them off because the next guy's going to come along and say, what?
Oh, there's a lot of axioms around. I watch a lot of Warren Buffett videos. And because he's really up there in age, I don't know how much longer we're going to have him. And he shares these pearls, and he says, if you delight is the word he uses. Not just give your customer what they want, but if you delight them, they're coming back over and over. In other words, exceed the expectations, right? And that's one way to avoid that. But then there are toxic people, and I think Charlie Munger said, I think. The people you choose to be around, you surround yourself with, tell you everything about yourself you need to know.
Right. All right.
So, any advice
on being honorable?
Yeah.
David, in our tribe, there's less written about how to be a religious person, but if you read the old stuff that people of our ethnicity come from, there's a lot written about how to conduct your business.
Right.
It's surprisingly how much in ancient times how to conduct commerce was written down, and that's a way to live an honorable life. Because in business is really where your character is going to show up. Because there's temptations to be unhonorable or greedy or all that, and there's a lot of laws and about how you should conduct yourself in business, that I would say look to that.
I also think that if you just remember certain rules that you follow, like taking responsibility for your own actions, right? And you're the one who controls whatever you do. So go ahead, live up to it. And if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. It's okay. All right. Don't be hard on yourself. That's another good one, right? Or else you could make yourself the victim very easily. I mean, when I first started out, I used to be up all night long after the first lighting rehearsal, thinking that it was a total disaster that I'm looking at on stage. When with actors, you're like a 10 out of 12 or something like that. And then the next day you see costumes and everything looks a lot better. Once costumes hit the stage.
That's true.
Right?
They change. I want to add something to what you said, David, about taking responsibility. That we have a false notion about ourselves in that we're in 100% control of our behavior. And we are not. And in particular, we work oftentimes in theater under very, very stressful scenarios. And science has proven that after 5 p.m., and in particular when you're tired or in a bad mood, like I am today in a bad mood, and I recognized that earlier today, that this part of your prefrontal cortex, you have a self-censor, you have a part of your brain that actually screens what you're going to say, And there are these stickers that say, I apologize now for what I'm going to say in tech, okay? Because there's a recognition. So recognizing that humans are fallible, and yes, we can take responsibility. And on the other, and with that comes contrition, comes, hey, I got that wrong. I didn't mean to say that. I lost my temper. That's what David's saying is take responsibility. And I agree wholeheartedly. And on the other side of the equation, the person who might have been standing there when you lost your temper or you weren't honorable also has an opportunity to find for themselves forgiveness and to recognize that, you didn't mean it, and to accept an apology or to offer forgiveness. What I think is hard to swallow is when someone does you wrong and they just refuse to acknowledge it, number one, to David's point, and then never offer an apology, or if an apology is offered, becomes so cold that they won't. I don't think I could ever become cold enough to not accept an apology, but I think I could become cold enough to someone who refuses to offer one.
And there you have it.
I had one other little advice. Learn to say no to a situation that you may be put in, that you may end up being the victim.
Right.
If you know the players, this is why production teams are so important.
Sure.
Because when I work with Paul and Ken and the other designers I work with as part of those teams, these are friends of mine. We love each other. We care about each other. We've been working together for 25 years, in some cases, 30 years, 40 years, actually, with Ken and I. We've been working together a long time. Whenever you work with a new team, you just have to be real careful. You got to listen, and you got to understand where everyone's coming from. And you just look at it as an opportunity of making new friends. But if for some reason one or more of those people just are not going to be good friends, then you really don't want to be working with them. Or you want to find a way to work with them, but not become the victim and not, making sure that's a positive experience.
Beware the red flags.
Beware the red flags.
Beware the red flags.
I like that.
Right.
That should be the title of this episode.
And even in yourself. I came home today and I said to Pam, I am in a crappy mood today. I told you guys before the show. I recognized this morning several things have happened that put me in a bad mood. I want to get out of it, but it's that self-awareness. So anything I say today, please forgive me in advance. I ask forgiveness now because I know I'm going to slip tonight. I can just tell I'm in a mood.
And it isn't even Yom Kippur and you're asking for forgiveness.
Yeah, I got things gnawing at me. I got 2 phone calls during this show that I'm going to have to return after we finish, and I'm going to say to my friends who called me, just so you know, I'm not in a good mood.
Right.
I'm not in a good mood.
But you've been very well behaved during this last 40 minutes.
I also haven't talked that much.
All right.
All right.
You have. Okay. So Ellen has the last question of the day.
Yes. Josh in Philadelphia asks, I've been watching great concerts on TV lately. What kind of video monitor should I get to see the truest colors in the lighting?
That's a good question.
So, David, I think you have some insight into that.
I have some insight because I'm like a video nut, okay? I have to have the best TV possible. I just, it has to be as realistic as possible. I can't wait till holograms and, we're actually placed in like a giant sphere in our living room so that I can just like get a full amazing.
Aren't you going to get those Apple goggle thingies?
No, the Apple goggles, they're great, but they don't give you the contrast you need. That, for instance, All right, this is a very good question because there's a really lot of good video out there right now. And the video is usually very high resolution. We're not talking 1080. We're talking 4K at least. There are 8K videos out there now. And you want to have a television set or monitor that can really display that with accurate color, especially when you're dealing with lighting. Now, being a lighting designer, this is really important for everybody to know that. Okay, I am not a tax professional. So don't say, David told me to do this. However, everything you watch on video is something called research. because you are researching the lighting of movies, of television shows, of concerts. These are things that you are researching, okay, that you're going to use when you start lighting live events or television or concerts. So that means that nice new video monitor you have is tax deductible. Now, make sure you have more than one in your house. Only take the deduction for one of them. Don't take it for two of them. Take it for one of them. Because the IRS can come back and say, well, wait a second. You're telling us you don't watch TV just for pleasure. Now, they give the argument, actually, yeah, I do, but that's also research. It's still research. But you could say, actually, for this other TV, that's what I use for my pleasure, and this TV I use for my research. You could say that. But that being said, I highly recommend a really top brand OLED screen. All right. Now, there are companies like Samsung, LG, Sony. Those are the three companies I would look at. Personally, I have an LG, and I'm buying a new monitor actually in a couple of weeks. And it's surprisingly inexpensive. Now, the reason why I say OLED is because OLED gives you pretty much perfect blacks. A regular LED, you're going to have a certain amount of gray. However, LEDs are getting better as well. But OLEDs actually turn off, so you get pure blacks. And that's what you want. You want good contrast. You also want to get a monitor that has really good color accuracy. That's why I'm suggesting these top monitors, these top brands, because LG makes OLEDs for like some of the other top companies as well. They make the OLEDs. So I would highly recommend doing that. And you'd be surprised because you can pick up a really large monitor, like 65-inch monitor now. If you go down to Costco or something like that, you can pick up a regular LED, very bright TV for like $600, a 65-inch monitor. All right, it's crazy cheap. An OLED's going to cost you about $1,200 to $1,500. It's when you're in a 65-inch. And the reason why I say 65 inch is that I think that's a reasonable size for almost any space. If you're about 8 feet back to about 12 feet, a 65 is a really good size monitor. For more information, check out CNET at CNET. They do television reviews and they do shootouts between the top ones. And they'll tell you where to buy them and what the prices are. Stan?
I have an LG OLED, and David Martin Jacques was my video consultant. He advised me on the size, the type, the brand, and we're quite happy with it. We have a pretty small space, although I have been fantasizing about, and maybe David wants to chime in on this, because of my situation, I would like to get rid of that screen in my living space, and I would like to put a retractable projection screen up on the ceiling, and I have a good location for a projector, and I would like to sort of just have nothing there and then push a button and have the screen come down and use the projector. Do you think I could get, with the new laser projectors, anything the quality of an OLED?
It's a different technology because when you're projecting something, it's not a light emitting device you're looking at.
Right.
An OLED screen you're looking at, that's a light emitting device.
I totally get that piece, but I'm asking if I could get something that I would still enjoy because I can have something larger.
I'm getting a 77 inch. Okay, that's pretty damn big.
I cannot. But because we have this built-in thing, I'm limited by the physicality.
You want a screen.
All right, you guys can talk about Stan's living room next time.
Thank you.
But no, it's a good question because that is an option, is buying a projector. But, you're now spoiled,
Stan.
Well, what are you projecting from? Going to run DVDs in there? What do you run?
Well, there could be lasers, it could be a laser projector. The problem is, like I said, though, it's not going to be as bright as an LED screen or an LED panel or an OLED panel. It's just not.
Right.
Not. So you're kind of spoiled now because now you're used to watching a beautiful screen for about 3 years.
Except it's only so big. But if I did a screen, I could have a much larger.
Yeah, but it won't be
image.
as bright and you won't get the same contrast. That's just the difference.
So, we should check in with Zach on this.
Yeah, Zach is the person to talk to. There you go. Okay. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tell us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website at lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk Insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast.
If you decide to litigate, the Snoot Group with the legal team of Watson, Leitner, and Beam will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers and sister, coming to you from Gainesville, Long Beach, and St. Bart's.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you more of our casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk is broadcasting very questionable lumen and tax knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Bye-bye.
Adios.